Hello folks, Y Guy here again. Welcome to my home on this very cold 20-degree temperature weather we have outside. Believe me, if I had a chance or a choice to go someplace warm during the winter, I would do so, but for some reason Benjamin Franklin won't allow me to do that. This video is called The Y Guy and Robots versus Free Will. And the reason for that title is because I used to share and I used to believe and I was taught that God didn't create robots. Thus, it must mean, and a conclusion would be jumped to, it must mean that God created us with free will since He didn't create us as robots. Now see, for some reason religious people do that all the time. They always do, well, it's got to be one way or the other. And God's bigger than that. He's bigger than a one way or the other. And I would like to share a third option that I woke up with. I shouldn't say I didn't wake up with the option this morning, but I did wake up with the option to share a third option that is biblical with my viewers and see if it makes any sense to you. I was taught that in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve there at the tree, eating of that fruit and stuff, that point in time was the opportunity for them to choose to obey God or not. The problem with that theory, or that conclusion that was jumped to, is they never had choices before that point in time. And if you were going to use the terminology that the modern preachers use, that we have to choose to love God or not, you're also telling me they didn't love God yet until that point in time? You see, it doesn't make sense to put that burden and to base it all on what happened in that garden, to base everything on that and to put it on the burden of the peoples of this world is ridiculous. And it doesn't make sense, all right? And here's the reason why. It's because Adam and Eve, they walked and talked with God. We don't. They knew God from creation, and we don't. Okay, they knew God from the beginning of their very existence. We're enemies of God from birth, apparently. And they were not born with a sinful nature. We are. Now, if you're going to compare apples to apples, pun intended, if you're going to compare that, you've got to do it correctly. Adam and Eve are oranges, okay? We're the apples, or whatever. You get my point. They made choices out of full knowledge and understanding of what choices they were making. They knew exactly what they were doing. Well, no, they weren't. They were deceived. No, Adam was not. Okay, read your count about this, okay? Had a full knowledge, full understanding of exactly what was going on, what was taking place. Because they knew who God was and is. Again, we don't when we're supposed to make the right choice. They already had a cultivated relationship with God, a friendship with God, before partaking of that fruit, before making that choice. We never had that opportunity. Okay? Now the Christian community is expecting the people of the world that have never known God to make the right choice to follow God, that they never knew or experienced or cultivated a relationship with or anything. Do you see? I'm hoping this is making sense. Obviously, I didn't jump to a conclusion. I came to a conclusion, or maybe I am jumped to a conclusion. I came to the conclusion that the right and correct choices, if we're going to make a choice, to make a right and correct choice, it has to be done with knowledge and understanding of what we're choosing and why we're choosing it. I think that's not jumping to a conclusion. I think that's reasonable. Okay? As an example, if I've never drank coffee before in my life whatsoever, I've never tasted it, let's say, and someone were to put 2 cups of coffee in front of me and say to me, one was vanilla flavor, one is plain, and before even partaking of, before tasting any of it, choose, Y Guy, choose which one you want. That wouldn't be, who does that make sense to? That wouldn't be a fair way to make a choice, and yet that is what the religious people are expecting people of the world to do. I hope that makes sense. I really do. So how do we initially gain that knowledge that Adam and Eve had so that we could make the right choice? All right. Some people say, well, by the Word of God. Well, I'm not claiming that the Bible is the Word of God whatsoever, but God does use the Bible as a wonderful tool to lead and draw people. But by saying that alone, you're saying that every person who has a relationship with God read their Bible first. That's ridiculous. Some will say, well, somebody shared with me. That's usually the case. Well, now, here's my question to you who run with that, is who initiated them to share with you? Okay? Who encouraged them to share with you? See, it's all about God. God gets the glory. He gets the credit for it, whether he uses a Bible, a dream, another person, a song, or whatever. Visions. I want to go with the third option now. Okay? It is God who works in you to will and to do or to act, meaning choice, according to his good pleasure. For it is God who works in you both to will and to act according to his good purposes, is another version. Well, it's all about God, all right? And how does he go about doing that? By convicting hearts. Now, conviction in the Greek means to bridge. To bridge, that's what it means. Now, to bridge God's thoughts to our thoughts, do you think knowledge comes along with that little bit of bridging? Some knowledge. Of course it does, because we all still see through a glass dimly, so we're just getting little bits and pieces of knowledge. All right? Now, along with that knowledge, God introduces himself to us. The point is, it is God who works in us. As an example, when I come to know the Lord, I saw this vision of Christ standing there. I saw me standing next to him, and I saw such a difference between the two of us that it broke my heart. There were a lot of knowledge came to me at that point, what I saw. And I ended up crying in a fetal position on the floor, wanting to be like Christ rather than like that person I was. Now, that was quite a bit of knowledge that hit me, and obviously it made a change for the rest of my life. And I desire now to know that God who gave me that knowledge, you see. God is competent. One heart at a time. God is going to convict one heart at a time at the perfect time and the perfect place and using the perfect circumstance, okay, for that person to make the right choice, to choose him. But what if they don't choose him? Why, guy? Then they're lost. And they were to die, then they're lost. If they were to die in that choice, oh boy, that's another doctrine of men for you. There's nothing in the Bible that says that. You can't even find a circumstance or an example of anyone experiencing that. And yet that's what's taught as if it was the truth. First of all, folks, God is outside of time. It's a mystery to me how he does it. Okay? But death does not stop God from working, from convicting. God doesn't stop convicting. Just because somebody refuses to acknowledge him and accept his conviction doesn't mean he stops convicting. It doesn't mean that he's all of a sudden becomes incompetent. All of a sudden his will is thwarted, because it's his will that all men be saved. You know, the very worst scumbag that you could ever know existed, down to the nicest little old lady, God knows exactly what it's going to take to touch each and every heart. He knows it. And yes, it may not be, or I should say, no, it may not be in this lifetime or in this age. Okay? But God knows exactly what he's doing. So if you're going to choose an option, choose this. For it is God who works in you to will and to do according to his good pleasure. It is God. That's option 3. That is scriptural. Robots are not scriptural. Free will is not scriptural. But trusting in God for all humanity, that is biblical. Trusting God's competence is scriptural. Trusting that he's going to have his way, that his will not be thwarted, is scriptural. Do you see? Third option makes a lot more sense. So let's throw out option 1 and 2. And let's go with option 3. For it is God. You can trust that. Thank you for viewing.